He's one of the most famous teenagers in all of literature, but he can also be one of the most confusing. Today, we're going to try and understand Holden Caulfield from The Catcher in the Rye. We'll break down who he is, what makes him so upset with the world, and maybe what we can learn from him about growing up. So, before we get into all his problems and his big ideas, let's just start with the basics. Let's ask the most important question. Who is Holden Caulfield really? Okay, so meet Holden. He's 16 years old, pretty smart, but he's just been kicked out of another school. He feels totally alone, really confused by the world around him. But if there's one single thing you need to know about him, it's this. He absolutely hates what he calls phonies. Right, that word, phony. It is the absolute key to unlocking Holden's personality. So let's really dig into this, his biggest issue with the world. What in the world does he mean by phoniness? Well, it's actually a pretty simple idea. To Holden, phony just means being fake, pretending to be something you're not or saying things you don't really mean. And for him, there is just nothing worse than that kind of dishonesty. So, who does Holden call a phony? Well, let's just say his list is long. He sees it everywhere. He sees it at his school, which he thinks is just pretending to be this amazing place. He definitely sees it in movie actors and in almost every adult he meets. Basically, in his mind, if you're not being 100% genuine 100% of the time, then yep, you're a phony. But, okay, here's where it gets a little complicated. See, Holden can't stand fake people, but he himself is often a liar. He'll tell strangers these completely made-up stories about himself. This contradiction is so important to his character. It shows us that he's not just judging the world, he's also really, really confused about who he is, too. So we've seen the world through Holden's very critical eyes, but what about the people he doesn't think are phony? To really understand his softer side, we've got to look at his family. And his family is so important because, really, out in the rest of the world, Holden feels completely on his own. He finds it incredibly hard to connect with people, and he trusts almost no one. But there is one major exception to this rule: his little sister, Phoebe. For Holden, Phoebe is everything that's still good and honest and pure in the world. So why is Phoebe so special to him? Well, it all comes down to this. She's innocent, she's smart, and she's completely honest. To put it simply, she is the exact opposite of a phony, and that makes her just about the most wonderful person in his entire world. There's actually one other person that Holden thinks of as perfect, someone who could never, ever be a phony, and that's his younger brother, Allie, who is no longer with them. You see, Allie died from leukemia, and this loss just completely changed Holden. He remembers his brother as being so kind, so smart, just genuine, another perfect, non-phony person. This tragedy is really at the heart of Holden's sadness and his anger at the world. It makes it really hard for him to deal with all the imperfections he sees around him. This powerful feeling, this desire to protect the innocence he sees in Phoebe and remembers in Allie, it leads us right to his famous dream. The one that gives the book its title. So, what does Holden actually want to be when he grows up? He pictures this scene in his head. First, imagine a huge field of rye, and there are tons of little kids just playing and having fun. Second, at the very edge of this field, there's a giant, dangerous cliff. And third, Holden imagines his job, his whole purpose, is to just stand there and catch any kid who gets too close to that edge before they can fall off. So what does this weird dream actually mean? Well, it's as simple for his deepest wish. He wants to be a protector of innocence. In his mind, falling off that cliff isn't just a physical fall. It's about growing up and falling into the complicated, phony world of adults. He wants to be the one person who can save kids from that. It's pretty clear that Holden is in a lot of pain. But the big question is, does he ever change? Let's take a look at the very end of the story to see if we can find any signs of hope. And we do see a change. It might seem small, but it's really important. For most of the book, he wants to be that catcher, stopping kids from ever having to grow up. But near the end, he has this moment while he's watching Phoebe on a carousel, and he realizes you have to let kids reach for things. You have to let them take risks and, well, grow up on their own terms. Now, this doesn't mean all his problems are suddenly solved. Not at all. He is still a very confused and struggling teenager. But that little shift in the way he sees things, that's a start. It's a small but really powerful sign of hope for him. And that brings us to the end of our little explainer. We've seen his anger at the world, his deep love for his family, and his incredible confusion. So I guess we'll leave you with a question to think about. What do you think? Is Holden Caulfield just an annoying, complaining teenager? Or is there something much deeper, much more meaningful in his story?